of the recursive theft. Pipe tobacco fumes mingled with confusion in Chief Inspector Reginald Reggie Briggs' office. His mahogany desk groaned beneath reports that defied explanation. Someone had breached the supposedly impenetrable, the Chronal Mercantile House Vault, Lord Oberon Penright's private collection, and the Royal Horologic Society's fortified archives. Missing were irreplaceable temporal treasures, the phase shift compass, a crystallized fragment from the Great Paradox Wars, and a pre-chronometric calculating engine. Vanished without explanation. But the thefts defied conventional understanding. The security chronometers registered no temporal breaches. Initially, vault seals appeared intact, yet upon inspection a day later, those same seals exhibited subtle distortions. Internal chronometers recorded inexplicable retrograde jumps. Evidence behaved erratically. Phantom footprints appeared, then dissolved into nothing. The security recordings told an equally confounding tale. A cloaked silhouette would occupy the frame, then vanish, only to reappear moments later with minute alterations. A hat tilted at a different angle, a coat hem suddenly longer or shorter. Briggs jabbed his pipe stem at the report, leaving a smudge of ash.
The Society's temporal theorists have a name for it now: recursive paradoxes.
His weathered face turned upward to meet the expectant gazes of Sergeant Kael and Officer Thomas Finch, the only two on his force he'd trust with something this bewildering. Cal straightened her already rigid posture, the creases in her uniform as sharp as her gaze.
Let me get this straight, Chief. We're dealing with someone who steals, then erases the theft, only to commit it again.
She pinched the bridge of her nose.
And here, I thought nothing could throb worse than the morning after a temporal distortion.
Finch, a young officer whose uniform was always slightly disheveled and who possessed extensive knowledge of temporal law and chronal signatures, adjusted his glasses.
It's more than that, Sergeant. The changes to the evidence are evolving. It's almost like the original theft created a branching timeline that the culprit keeps trying to trim or alter.
He pulled out a slim data slate, its surface flickering with temporal distortion markers.
Take Lord Penright's vault. First inspection. Chronometer jumped 3 seconds into the future. This morning's follow-up? Same chronometer, but now it's lagged 1 second behind. And the lock itself? Shows wear from temporal manipulation that predates both readings, as if someone tampered with time hours before either displacement was detected.
Briggs exhaled a cloud of aromatic smoke, his pipe bobbing with each word.
Splendid. About as comprehensible as a paradox in progress. Kael, I need you in the field. Track down anyone sniffing around temporal security protocols or with known connections to, shall we say, the murkier applications of chronal manipulation.
Kael nodded, fingers brushing the cold metal of her temporal disruptor.
I'll turn over every chrono den and time fence in Aevum City, sir.
The slight click as she unsnapped the weapon's safety spoke more eloquently than any verbal threat she might have issued.
Finch,
Briggs said, addressing his more analytical officer.
You're coming with me. Let's examine the reports. We need to determine if there's any pattern to these disappearances. What kind of temporal signatures are we detecting, even the subtle ones?
Finch's eyes sparkled with excitement. This was his domain. For days, Kael had been tirelessly scouring the streets, following leads and rumors in shadowy temporal bars and illegal artifact bazaars. She stumbled upon quiet discussions about a phantom thief capable of manipulating time at will, leaving nothing behind but faint whispers. Her persistent inquiries brought few solid details, as the dread of temporal revenge kept most sources tight-lipped. Meanwhile, Briggs and Finch meticulously examined the constantly changing reports. Finch spotted slight irregularities in the lingering temporal echoes, faint, nearly imperceptible signatures that didn't align with any known temporal displacement device. They were reversed. It wasn't merely a time reversal, but a signature attempting to erase its own existence.
Chief,
Finch murmured one evening, a note of revelation in his tone.
the thief isn't merely stealing and then taking the items again. They're attempting to completely erase the theft from the timeline. The changes to the evidence aren't just repetitive. They're happening in the past. They're aiming to shape a reality where the theft never occurred.
Briggs reclined, his pipe having gone out.
So Finch, they're not only ahead of us, are they actually a moment behind, attempting to alter their own history?
Finch's revelation transformed their investigation. Kael abandoned her search for the stolen artifacts themselves and instead hunted for someone with both the theoretical expertise to bend time and the technical skill to erase their own temporal footprints. A thief trying to unmake their own crime. Hunched over temporal readouts until his eyes burned, Finch traced the ghostly afterimages of what he'd begun calling time scars. These weren't simple cover-ups. Each backward signature carved its own miniature wound and causality. The evidence wasn't merely changing, it existed in multiple states simultaneously, like a quantum particle refusing to settle as the timeline struggled to heal itself. Their investigation took them on a winding journey, delving into obscure writings about time paradoxes and secretive reports of unsuccessful temporal experiments. Ultimately, they identified a small group of reclusive time researchers as suspects, people with the intelligence to understand such intricate manipulations and the solitude to carry them out unnoticed. Finch's eyes widened as the data crystallized before him. The temporal stress signatures from each vault matched perfectly with a forgotten research paper on chronometric dampening fields. The author, a brilliant but erratic scientist who died under mysterious circumstances, had theorized methods to negate time itself within confined spaces. Among the paper's acknowledgments appeared one name that sent a chill through Finch. Dr. Theron Royce. Further digging revealed Royce still lived, sequestered in the outer wards, surrounded by precisely the specialized equipment needed to bend time backward upon itself. Kael followed Royce to a hidden workshop in the loosely governed outer chronal wards. Although the building appeared unremarkable, Royce's portable temporal signature detector buzzed with an unpredictable, shifting energy. They entered the workshop carefully, and among a disorderly assortment of chronometers, focusing lenses, and partially dismantled temporal gadgets, they discovered Dr. Royce bent over an intricate machine. On a nearby table, the phase shift compass rested, its needle flickering unpredictably. Royce gazed upward, his eyes filled with a desperate intensity.
It was meant to be flawless.
He stammered, his voice barely audible.
A complete wipe, as if it had never happened.
As Kael attempted to capture him, the phase shift compass on the table disappeared, leaving behind a subtle shimmer in the air. A moment later, it reappeared, with its needle now indicating a slightly different direction.
He's rewriting reality as we speak.
Finch's voice cracked with urgency, his fingers pointing at rippling distortions in the air. The laboratory fractured around them, furniture stuttering between positions, light sources multiplying, then vanishing. Kael lunged for Royce only to find her hands passing through a fading afterimage, while the actual scientist materialized 3 feet to the left, his fingers dancing across controls that seemed to exist in several places at once. Understanding dawned on Finch like a temporal sunrise. Breaking Royce's loop, not merely apprehending him, would end this. His eyes locked onto Royce's apparatus, where a focusing crystal pulsed with chronal instability, its facets refracting light that hadn't yet arrived. Without hesitation, Finch lunged forward and struck the crystal from its housing. Reality snapped back into focus. Royce's shoulders sagged as his temporal manipulations collapsed around him. On the table, the phase shift compass settled into a single unwavering form, no longer jumping between states of existence. For the first time since the investigation began, the evidence refused to change. Briggs watched as they escorted the defeated Dr. Royce from his laboratory, his eyes taking in the scattered chronometers and half-assembled temporal devices. He struck a match against his boot heel, cupping the flame to his pipe.
Time theft that erases itself,
He said through a cloud of smoke.
30 years on the force, and the universe still finds ways to surprise me.
Kael shook her head.
We were always a step ahead, yet a moment too late, like we were chasing our shadows.
Finch, gently gathering the displaced focusing crystal, gave a slight smile.
The timeline,
He murmured.
has a way of trying to right itself. Our task is to ensure it rights itself correctly.
The case of the recursive theft was resolved, serving as a perplexing reminder that in Aeonfex, even the past could shift unpredictably.